Welcome back to Salon Success Secrets podcast. Today, we are excited to talk to you owner to owner because, whether you have six beauty pros or 406 beauty pros, the truth is the way that you show up as a leader is the single biggest multiplier or limiter, really, of your salon's results.
Yeah. And it's not about how many meetings you host, how good your marketing is, or even how skilled your team is. The most powerful, and this is so good, this is a writer downer, the most powerful tool that you can carry in your leadership tool belt is actually presence. And so, what is presence? You're probably wondering. And so, presence is your ability to notice.
Yes, man, that is truly the most powerful tool that you can have in your leadership tool belt because when you start to notice things like you notice your team, you notice your business, you notice what's being said, but maybe even more importantly, what's not being said. Because presence is what lets you step in at the right time, in the right way to turn a near miss into a total win. And, today we're going to break this down. We're going to share a few stories, a few wins, even some hard lessons and show you exactly how noticing can make or break your results as an owner.
Yeah. So let's clear the word. Let's clear the word presence. So presence isn't being here in the building. Presence is being in the building with your attention engaged. So think about this. As owners, we can be physically in the salon, but mentally in payroll, scheduling, marketing, or even next week's coaching call. The problem is that as a salon owner, when you run on autopilot, you miss the things that are quietly costing you money, culture, and clients. You miss the stylist who stopped rebooking because she lost confidence. You miss the front desk person who, dropped her upselling because she doesn't believe the treatments are worth it anymore. So presence is the thing that you lead in real time before a small slip turns into a revenue leak.
Mm,
Yeah,
yes,
so good.
that is so.
Linda, it got me thinking about this just actually happened in our salon. There was a situation we had where a guest came in for a regular short haircut. It was a guy, a
Mhm.
male, and our team just was on autopilot. So it's like, what guard do you want to use today? How much do you want me to take off the top? And somebody came to me and said, Jen, can you help me decide on what guard to use? And I said, sure, absolutely. Right. And so we went out there, and I remember this guest. He's been coming for quite a while. And I said, instead of making it about the guard, let's kind of look at his face shape, let's look at his bone structure, and let's give him some new ideas. I mean, he's 21 years old, he's getting ready to start his career. Let's give him some ideas. And so we, looked at his face shape, and the stylist went to work. They did a beautiful job. We talked him into going a little shorter on the sides and styling it a little bit different. And I remember like when she spun him around, I was kind of walking by and he was wow, this is amazing. This is an experience. This just wasn't just a haircut. This was an experience. And she even talked to him about product and how to style his hair. And it got me thinking, I said, he's been coming here a while. Let me just see, how many times has he come here? And it was like he had come here 51 times. We had missed the mark 51 times before he had taking home a home hair care. So it was a huge opportunity, to look at our systems and see, hey, let's make sure this never happens again. Why did it take 52 times to, make sure that he had that look that he wanted? And so when you think about that, it's really like working with your team and helping them understand like face shape, helping them understand, their strengths, and helping them understand communication, and helping them see like truly being present in the moment is what set this guest up for success. Like he didn't know it was presence, but because we were really present with him and we really created this personalized look for him, it gave him that wow factor. 52 visits later, it gave him that wow factor.
You arrived. Hey, you nailed it, and honestly, that's what's so inspirational about that story, Jen, is that I think if we were all honest, there's probably times where, I mean, you were obviously doing so many things right for him to keep showing up 52 times, but then when you created that transformation, like that's a testament to the company that you're creating and truly the leadership and the people, just them getting to see that transformation, that new stylist getting to see like, hey, wow, this truly is about that total look. And when I look at somebody's face shape and truly think about that total look, how much it does just transform everything, and we actually just had something happen in our salon recently too, and I think a lot of salon owners will be able to relate to this. We same with that story as well. Just recently had a lady who called in. She brought her young daughter in to get some pink in her hair, and she's an avid swimmer. And, so the stylist, thought that she set it up properly by saying, hey, we don't know how long this is going to last in her hair. It could only last one wash because you didn't want to pre-lighten the hair. And, for whatever reason, the client didn't understand, that chlorine could be a natural bleach on the hair. Anyway, there was some sort of a miscommunication. And I think sometimes, it doesn't necessarily mean that your team member has bad intentions, but sometimes it can get to a place where you feel like somebody's got to be right and somebody's got to be wrong in a situation, and I think what's powerful when you are in a leadership role is seeing like, hey, we are here on a mission. And the most important thing is that our guest feels beautiful inside and out. And, hey, we can look back and we can say, hey, what maybe happened during the consultation? Why was there a breakdown? Why did she think something different than what we did? But the truth was this client called back and she was upset. She wanted her money back. It actually took a long time for us to connect. She travels quite a bit. And anyway, we played phone tag. Finally, we got connected again. She was coming back in for a refresh on the daughter's color. And so I got to connect with her before it even got started. And what was so interesting was that she started out so upset about the color, washing out after one shampoo. She said, yeah, they told us it might only last one shampoo. We didn't even shampoo it. The hair just got wet, And, I think, yeah, we can laugh at that because we're like, well, that's the same, you use shampoo to get the pH back and, offer the nutrition and all that stuff. But that's on us. If we weren't educating properly, that's on us that they didn't understand that. And, after uncovering more about the situation, she was a big swimmer and, she was in chlorine. And so then we talked about, hey, what would it look like if we added in, either some K-tips or, a couple sandwiches, some sort of extension into her hair. And what happened was, at the end of our conversation, when I explained to her, hey, hair is like fabric, and chlorine is like bleach, and so when we're going into the chlorine a lot, it's really, bleaching out that fabric. And so after a while, it's hard for it to hold on to the color. It's almost like, if you were wearing a silk blouse and you got a stain on it versus wool and you got a stain on it, you would treat them differently. They're going to hold on to different things differently. Some are going to stain easier. Some are going to be easier to clean up. And she was like, wow, nobody has ever explained any of this to me. Nobody has ever explained to me about shampoo. And she's like, we want to get extensions today. And we totally understand what's going on. And, that story isn't for me to say, wow, Lindsay was the hero of this. But what it is to say is I was just present to what was going on. And instead of going in to make it right or wrong, I just went in to understand, like, hey, help me understand, what you understood, could happen with, once we put the pink in her hair. And then, we just came to this conclusion together. And really, truly, that's just a testament to being present as a leader and not looking for somebody to be right or wrong and just looking for, hey, how can I help this person win? How can I look for a solution that's going to be long term? It's not just going to be a quick fix band-aid. I'm not just trying to, it's not only about money here. This is truly about transformation. If she wants pink hair, hey, when I was 10 or 12 or 14 or however old she was and I wanted pink hair, I probably would have wanted pink hair no matter what. So how can we create that look for that client and help her win, and still make it a win for all of us?
That's, oh man, that's so good. I love that. It's like really, if you're present in that moment, you took Lindsay, you took a upset guest and made them spend more money. What the? That is so huge, you guys. And so like that is the power, like Lindsay was saying, of being present to what's happening and then teaching this to your team too, because a lot of times they're so in their own in their own heads that they can't even see what's truly possible. And so to be able to, work on that mindset with them, wow, that's so huge. It's like we said, owner to owner. So I'm going to give you another story too to let you really understand the power of presence. This came in, this happened too at our salon. And, I watched a new guest come in, did the salon tours, all the touch points, the sales process. She sits down, and she goes through, the service provider starts going through the consultation. And then I notice, I can just feel that the guest is just not super excited about the price, right? And so I see her look at the price, and because we do a cost before we create, and then I see her, like, you can tell she's wanting to take things off of the price, that's why we do the cost before we create. But then I see the service provider do the skin tone analysis and the face shape analysis after the fact that we gave her the price, right? And his owners are probably laughing. You're like, yeah, I've seen this too. And it was just like, wow, we missed the mark. Like, just think about this from a guest perspective. If we would have like helped her understand the value, like, hey, we're going to give you a really personalized look today based on your face shape, based on your DNA, based on your bone structure. And this is what it will look like. Most people, probably 98% of people, are going to buy into that because it gives their life value. And so it was just really interesting. I even said, as their service provider, we laugh about this now. She said, well, she didn't want the haircut. I said, okay, well, tell me how you served her and letting her know that the haircut could be a great opportunity for her. She said, well, I told her, since we're lightening your hair, you should probably come in for a haircut soon. And I chuckled and I said, oh goodness. I said, this is the power of presence. I said, so this is what I heard. You told her basically, hey, we damaged your hair, but you can come back and see me and pay for a haircut soon. And she started laughing and I started laughing, which released a lot of charge. But I was like, what if we talked about your face shape and her bone structure and said, hey, look at that beautiful jawline you have. If we took your curtain bangs and made them here, look how that opens up your face shape. I said, which one do you think would serve the guests more? The, hey, I bleached your hair, pay me some more money to cut it, or like, hey, here's a personalized look. And that is not possible if you are not present. And so just a really cool story I wanted to share with you guys to show the power of presence.
Yeah, that is an incredible story, Jen. And it is so true, because I think, I'm sure people are like, Jen, you're so beautiful, or, sharing that with whoever. But truly, when you're present, every single human being that you look at has their own special beauty. Like you mentioned, that's tied to their DNA, their bone structure, their natural coloring. And so when we can help people really create that environment where they're super present, they can see that, they can start to enhance them so that way that person walks through the world with more confidence. Because probably when they're saying, hey, Jen, you're beautiful, they're probably actually saying, I love your confidence, And so how can we help deliver that to people? I think it's also an area where presence changes your like retention, and I'm not just talking about with clients, because obviously we've shared some great stories with how does it impact your client retention, but how does it impact your team retention? Because I can think of so many stories over the years, where presence really was the most powerful tool that really helped unlock some new ways. And hey, that doesn't mean you're going to keep everybody, because we're not proponents of like, hey, you're going to keep every single person for life. because we are here on a human experience,
Mhm.
And so there is going to be sometimes with certain people an end of the road with them, and that's okay. I remember one time I had a service provider who was visibly disengaging. And I think at one point in time with my leadership, I maybe would have just ignored it. Actually, probably what would have happened is, at that point in time, I was working so many hours behind the chair, doing so many roles inside the salon. So, if that's you and you can relate to it, you're like, gosh, I'm so busy. I don't even see kind of what's going on with the team. Or maybe somebody's filling you in like, hey, Lindsay, did you know so and so has such and such, blah, blah, blah. That's a pretty good sign like, hey, I need to get super present during, those meaningful times that I am with every beauty pro on the team or service provider on the team. Because, when you start to pay attention in huddles, like, hey, who's engaged and who's, disengaged, but also who's actively disengaged, because those are the type of people who you do not want on your team, because truly your salon is a temple and you don't want people walking in and out with dirty feet. And so when you start to notice things like that, having that presence will give you the ability to act. So just like when I noticed once upon a time that I had this service provider on my team, her numbers were dropping. She was missing meetings. Her pre-book percentage was going down. It would have been really easy for me to avoid the hard conversation and just hope that it got better, or sprinkle in some like, hey, here's some ideas on how to get your pre-books up or whatever. But presence truly told me to act. And one day I was just like, hey, like we sat down and we talked honestly. And ultimately, we agreed it was best to part ways. And, truly what it did was free her to find a better fit, because I know the service that we want to create for our guests. And I know how important continuing education is and showing up for our salon celebrations, our team meetings, and, if this is somebody who isn't seeing the value in that and they aren't truly trying to create that transformation, it's not my place to decide if they're a good or a bad person, but it is my place to decide if they're a good or a bad fit for our company, keeping that temple clean and making sure there's not dirty feet coming in and out. And so truly, once we were able to release her, it really made the energy increase so much,
Mhm.
but really, if I wasn't present and I was avoiding that moment, that would have cost us far more by keeping her
Mhm.
on the team and not coaching for her to find an opportunity somewhere else.
So good. So let's give you some tools of like coaching through curiosity, so that when you are present as a leader, it's like, okay, what's the action I can take to maybe change the service provider's behavior or help them see a different perspective, because they just need those tools in their tool belt. So to get it actionable, when you notice something like you notice that the client no longer wanted a haircut, no longer wanted this, you start asking question. Maybe, tell me what stopped you, or why do you think or what stopped them from getting the haircut? Oh, and I think the response was, oh, her mom does hair. She just don't want to pay for it. But I bet her mom's never even given her a face shape analysis or a DNA analysis. And so when you're present to these kind of opportunities, when you see something, say something and give someone, that coaching moment from a place of power, you guys do, and not place for force. Not like, well, why didn't she get a haircut? Come on now, don't you know? Like you never want to come from that place. But when you notice that the sales are dropping or offers are not being made, or retail is slipping, just don't jump to assumptions. Get curious. Be like Curious George, I like to say, and
Mhm.
asking those questions, like I said earlier, like what's stopping you from offering that treatment, or what's your thought process when you're deciding what to recommend? Because truly, 9 out of 10 times, you'll find the issue isn't skill, it's actually a belief, it's confidence, and it's an understanding. And once you know that, you can actually coach.
Mm. Man, that is so powerful, Jen. And when you said that, it really made me think like, I think that the key difference between being a powerful leader versus being a forceful leader is that a powerful leader is curious, like you mentioned. That is
Mhm.
like, they know that's their super strength. And so they speak in the language of questions,
Mhm.
and a forceful leader, they are very statement and action oriented and do this, do that. Like they strike out things to do, and they're very statement oriented. So they don't
Mhm.
get curious. They don't try to understand what's happening or what that belief is. So I love that you said that, Jen. That's a writer downer. That's really a
Mhm.
powerful tool to be curious, George. So if you want
Mhm.
to hey, if you want to fast track your way to being a powerful leader, speak in questions, get curious. And if you want to fast track your way to be a forceful leader, just start barking out things and you'll be exhausted. So good luck there. But
Mhm.
you know, but here, is a visual that we want to leave you with because we want you to picture your leadership tool belt. You know, one pouch can hold like the tangible tools. So like your systems, your, standard operating procedures, your metrics, like the numbers, all of that stuff. But, another pouch holds the intangible tools. This is where presence is. This is where, you start noticing. This is where curiosity is. This is where trust lives. And most salon owners live in that first pouch. They but but the salons that grow without burning out their leaders, they use both. And if you're listening and thinking, this is what I've been missing. I want a team that doesn't need me hovering to succeed. That's exactly why we built Million Dollar Beauty Pro. And it's where we coach team-based salons, everyone on the team, to develop their internal leadership skills that grow the revenue and culture at the exact same time.
Yeah, wow. And we're not talking about just systems, not
Mm-mm.
just sales, but the presence and coaching skills that make your systems work. And so if you want to see how or what that could look like in your salon, let's talk because the truth is you cannot lead what you don't notice. So good. Let me say that again. The truth is you cannot lead what you don't notice. So stay present, stay powerful, and keep building something beautiful.